on building a career in the fashion industry. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming. 2 people are now entering the waiting room. They're being admitted. We've got people coming in. Welcome, everybody. I'm Rebecca. Shame I can't see you all, but that's just how it is these days. So
okay,
we've got more people coming in. Hello, good evening. Now, thank you for being here on time and being punctual. We'd like to welcome you to this webinar from IIT, and my name is Rebecca Russell-Turner, and I am from the UK, and I am a consultant for the Fashion Management Business Programme here. And this is Zishan Hussain, and he is joining us tonight to talk about building a career in the fashion industry based on his expert knowledge and advice and experience. Welcome, Zishan.
thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Now, Zishan, I know you're incredibly busy. You have back-to-back meetings, so thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about your career in the fashion industry. Thank you and welcome.
It's my pleasure.
So we're looking at how you can build a career in the fashion industry, and we're going to be looking at Zishan's career to inspire us. And if you're just arriving now, welcome. Welcome to this talk. This webinar is about fashion and merchandising managing. So Zishan, you are a divisional merchandise manager.
Yes, that's right. That's my current role at Odell.
That's your current title. So can you tell us what that title entails? What does that mean? What is a merchandising manager and a divisional merchandise manager?
Yeah, so a merchandiser manager is somebody who looks into a smaller vertical where, say, there is a footwear and a handbag division. So that merchandising manager will look after the whole division, which includes all the brands. So a divisional merchandising manager is a person who looks after the whole vertical. So according to the structure, I do look after about 70% of the international brands. So under me, there are 2 divisional merchandising managers, then senior buyers, then the junior buyers, then it goes up to the allocators.
So, so it's quite complex. It's quite a complex division. And do you find yourself working in this division with a team, or do you find yourself being quite self-directed most of the time?
Yeah, it's more like a team. What I would say is Odell has a nice structure where, you know, all gel into different levels. So we have, you know, different division. We have a home division, we have private labels, we have international brands, we have a sports division. So within division, there are divisional merchandising manager, then they report to head of buying. That is the structure. So what happens is each divisional manager, if you take me instance, so I have a footwear and handbags division. I have a division for international watches and sunglasses. Then I have a division where my mass brands like Levi's, US Polo, Giordano, those kind of brands. Then also we have bridge to luxury brands like Mango, Armani Exchange, those bit of things. Then also I handle the luxury version of Perla's, Impo Armani's, Michael Kors. So it is all divided, and all of them have a merchandising manager. Then it cascades to a senior buyer or buyer. Then it goes to a buyer, then it goes to a, you know, the planning level of allocation, replenishment, those kind of stuff. But it is well structured and everybody is clear with their roles. Like the main responsibility would be, you know, controlling, if I have to start, like, do you want me to start through the job role, what we do and how is the day, that part of it? Or?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, now, before we go into too much detail, you know, I want to know about, first of all, you've got, you know, a long history in fashion. Tell the people out there how many years you've been working in fashion.
Well, the fashion started actually like the retail fashion part started in my life for the last 14 years, but I come from the apparel background. So what happens is I joined Readywear in 2000 and I started as a management trainee. Then I used to work with these catalog orders, you know, the European catalog. Those days, now we are on e-com, right? When I started, we had the catalog era.
Yeah.
So from there, when I started, I was involved in clothing always. So there was a point where, you know, then I started Readywear, then moved into MAS Holdings. I was at Active and Slimline. Then I went to Jordan to work for Levi's manufacturing. So that bit of experience was totally into my clothing manufacturing. So always, we do the back end work. The manufacturing is very tough. Apparel clothing is not easy. It's always pressure, and you're like in the middle of the sandwich of cancellation, delays. You know the drill. So what happens is, so a small example. So when I was working as at MAs, we used to do these Victoria's Secret briefs. We charged them about $2 as a FOB maximum. But the end result in US, they do sell this product for $12.99. So that's about 80 plus margin and about 6 times more than what we sell. So I was always curious, because I used to see the selling tag. So we sell it for $2 and they sell it for $12.99. So I was always curious. Okay, where is it going to lead? So then I wanted, I had done about 9 years in apparel. So I really wanted to go and see what is fashion retail, getting into retail, because at that time in Sri Lanka, we hardly had any sort of retail. We were more likely into, wholesale, stock clothes. This is where the businesses, and it was a heritage of, coming through families. So we did not have real fashion. So then either I had to go to Singapore, Hong Kong, or where it is to find a job. So luckily I found a job at Landmark. So I had to, to give up. I was a senior operations merchandiser at MAS, but I had to go and join as a junior buyer with Landmark because I had to take that career up with me. So then it started that my life towards to fashion, how they retail, why the seasonality, why do they cancel. So all that exposure, I got it from fashion, and it inspired me.
Yeah, amazing. And so do you think that's the best place to start as a junior buyer to learn the ropes? Because obviously it's the fashion industry and everything changes so quickly. So would you recommend that for somebody who wants to take this route into a career?
Yeah. Now, if you see the current structure also, we put a lot of designers out in the market in Sri Lanka, for example. So a designer has to make a base and has to be open enough to be a buyer or a merchandiser, because it is still going to demand you that role. Because if you take example in Sri Lanka now, the sector of fashion. So we have one sector where people do categories, like, you go to Pinterest, you copy international brands, and, somehow you scrap your way to a range and you sell that. That is one side of a fashion retail, what we do. Then the second sector is where most of the companies has private labels. So they have their own designers and all also the private brands. Then the third sector is, I would say, the international brands. So wherever you are, if you're a designer, you can easily fit into these these three segments. Buying is a part of designing also, I would say. You can't be, the designing aspect is so important for a buyer. So I would say, yes, a designer can start with a merchandising role or a buying role. That is the way forward if they want to pursue as a fashion retailer in this country.
And that's really good advice. Thank you. Why, we've talked about the history of, how you ended up from going to manufacturing, but did you think you purposely chose to go into the fashion industry, or did it happen by accident, or, was it a passion that you had or an ambition?
Yeah, it's the, I always wanted to either retail because like when I worked for MAs, what happened was, manufacturing is quite difficult. Whoever in the manufacturing field, they will know the pain, you got to fill the factories, outputs, there's so much things, but actually the fruit is coming out from the retailer, who are the franchise owners, who are the brands. So I always has that aspiration to go and do retail, because I used to read magazines. Then I was at Readyware also. I used to see the magazines, how how do they sell this? So that part of the the selling techniques and all these thought of to be a retailer.
Yeah, and so you are, incredibly ambitious, and we talked about the fact that you are studying at the moment as well at IIT. So how are you managing to were you managing to keep the work life and study balance?
Luckily, it's over now, to be honest. I would say the course what we're doing, this course is a full-time course in UK, and this university has a really good course content. I would say I learned a lot, especially the examples where they quote about the international brands, the case studies, researchers, all those will open up, even how they train to make a pecha kucha and all these new things, presentations, it's a lot of it takes a lot of time, but it is worth it. So what happens is nowadays it is so easy, like you don't have to read, right? When you get something, the PDF will read it for you. So I'm a person who like podcasting. I like to listen. I'm so not the person who goes and reads. So what I did was with my luckily I had to I had a break from Dubai when I came in, so I had a bit time, so I spent that time. But when I finished that also, I was working. But what I would say is it's the commitment, and it's a lot of reading, and fashion is not so difficult nowadays. It's just if you browse through Instagram or Business of Fashion or wherever it is linked, and you get daily emails. So it's a balance, and it has to be an interest also.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're studying and working at the same time, you're showing a lot off, but you've got to love fashion. But why did you choose to do a master's course, Zishan?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I don't have a bachelor's. That is because of the system we come in Sri Lanka. So I am Y, right, in generation. So what happens is after we do our A levels, we did not have much choices, to be honest. So either you have to go to private university or you have to get selected. So I started, after I'm a school leaver, wanted to work. So I had a sports ground bit on me. So I straight away joined as Readyware to work. So from that, I never had a time to acquire myself a paper qualification. So it had to go on the systems. It was all about experiences. I went to, so many, I met so many people who had the qualifications. So I was wondering, I need to get a paper qualification. Then in Dubai, I started to research, and I started to do. Then when I came back to Sri Lanka, I thought, no, I need to get this done. So it was, it was commitment, because I have two kids, and to do this, it was a long stretch. And I would always say my wife has been there with me to support me, because if not, it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah. She's
drive you need.
Yeah, it's great. So, you wanted to get this qualification, but this qualification is, the intention was to fulfill your ambition. So, what, in the future, what is your ambition? What would you like to do?
Yeah, so what I feel is when I looked at the theories, when I looked at the course contents, I figured it out. This is how it has been, the changes. Now, if you see the supply chain theories, what they will teach you, the marketing theory. So actually, with my experiences, I never knew the leadership, trends, how do you work, this technical aspect, I got it through the academic qualification for masters. So it shaped me to a better person, to understand better presentation, how you need to work to a topic, how do you research, how do you start about it. So that aspect, I got it. So what I want to do is now, with my experience, I bring the first-hand experience, which is very rare in this country. For fashion retail, if I have to be specific. So I would like to do part-time training, talk about the subjects I know pretty well. So it'll open up some avenue. I'm sure I'm going to contribute a lot in terms of the buying, planning, that bit of side.
Yeah, and isn't it your ambition to be in the future a CEO? You said to me.
Well, yeah. Yes, that's a dream. Let's see now. I'm very fortunate to work to the leading fashion house in Sri Lanka, and we have a visionary leader. Actually, he's the face of the international brand. So I'm very proud to work at Adel. Yep, that's the way forward. Let's see. I
Yeah,
just think this is the start, and there is a lot more to achieve.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's always good to have set your intentions and have ambitions and aim right for the top. And I'm sure that having an MA will help you achieve those ambitions.
Definitely, definitely. I tunes up.
So let's have a look at more questions. So, audience, you're quite welcome to send me some questions in the chat box as we're talking away. I have got some structured questions here, but you know, if there's anything you want to ask, or you know, if we're not clear, you're not clear about anything we're talking about, please do feel to just put your messages in the chat box, and we can interact with you. So make it really, really fun and interactive, and want you to get the best out of this experience of learning about fashion. So what is a typical day look like in your work diary? And has it changed now we're working in this different world now for the last year and a half? So let's talk about what it's like now, and then maybe we could compare it to what it was like before.
Yeah, so what happens is now, like if you take the daily basis, what we do is we do have these open to buy requirements. We work on those, then we work on the subcategory level, then we work on range plans, then season wise order placements. We even monitor the shipment to payment aspect. We do create the pricing strategies. We work with the allocation, stores transfer. These are the things what we do on a daily, weekly basis. But if you take in ad hoc basis, brand awareness, we look at it, how we can enhance that bit of it. Then we do provide the brand training and knowledge transfer to the next layer of the staff, the other set of people who need help. Then we look into VM support side. We do expo for new location planning. Then when the season try to end, we do lessons learned. Okay, how can we do best practices for the coming season? So that's a mix of it. Yeah.
So when we say season, we're talking about a 3-month schedule for a season.
Yes,
yeah.
In Sri Lanka.
So how far are you working ahead in advance to work for these seasons? Is it still the same? Are you working like 6 months ahead, or is it longer or shorter now?
It is the same pattern whether you work on Odell or you work on overseas. It's always when you work with international brands, even the private labels nowadays, they do have a 6-month lead time because you got to source the fabrics, then the lead times. So it's always 4 to 6 months minimum for a season.
Yeah. So 4 to 6 months in advance. So you're always living in the future.
Yes.
Do you feel like do you have to be good at maths to do your job? Are you crunching numbers a lot?
There is a number part involved. That's why we do have a sales forecast and do an open to buy plan. But how much you want to buy, what is your peak sales, when is the day. So you have a sales plan for the future for the next year, or something sort of a business plan. So on an open to buy plan, it will throw you how much you need to buy for each month, reducing the closing stock, reducing the aging stock, and based on the intakes, it will throw you up a plan. So based on that, you tend to work, but always most of the brands are flexible because, for the pandemic situation. And also from our side, we always like to hold as take the time as much as possible. So it's when we also do the buys now, especially when we do the autumn buy, we always like to buy less, and we want to buy more for spring summer. That is to keep the flexibility on the buy, and also to keep the flexibility on the seasonality products.
Yeah, it's complicated, isn't it? So we're talking about kind of skills, and we talk about like numbers now. What other skills do you feel like you have to do your job well?
I would say like a good eye, that is more important than anything, I would say. And definitely analytical skill, because retail is more into detail. You need to drill down that to the one unit, what you sold when it comes to the luxury brand. Then, you have to look into other commercial categories when it come to a bigger brand. So that, that two aspects. And also you need to understand the global trend, as well as how you can bring the right assortment to the current local aspect. That is very important. You need to protect the brand DNA too, but still you got to make sure you pick the right product for the right country, which is really, really important.
That's interesting.
But sometimes, but sometimes there are instances where you need to buy certain products. Now, say for a brand, like there are leather jackets, so you got to have one as at least as a window piece. So those kind of things we used to do, to make sure that we represent the brand also.
So do you think any of your job is based on intuition?
Sorry, pardon?
Do you feel like you have to use your intuition as well as part of this job?
Yes, definitely, because some of the brands are push brands where you don't get the freedom to pick your stock, because you give them a budget. This is what we want monthly. Then they do send the assortment from that side. So you have to intervene a lot and say, okay, no, this is not a category it's going to work. We want more of t-shirt. That sort of examples we do. Apart from that, a lot of skills, like, I use a lot of experience, especially the first-hand experience I've seen. And also I'm a believer that, not to having old stock, we got to turn around the season faster, even if you have a backlog. So you got to have, you have to be consistent when you do retail. You can't like be ad hoc. You got to go with the flow, because if not, you will fall behind its seasons.
Yeah. So do you find like towards the end of the season, you're going to be working longer hours? Is it kind of like, does it take over your life?
Yes and no. It's again nowadays, you can work from home. It's not a problem. You are being given a dongle. You have all the facilities. Now Teams is, a bigger part. It's 24/7. So you get longer days, because whatever the stock you want to discard is also precious. It's somebody else's money. You got to manage it properly, even though it's the last bit. But you have to have the balance. You got to get rid of them also on time.
Okay, so we've got some questions from the audience. So thank you so much, audience. We've got a question from Malika. What's the job market like in Sri Lanka for like a fashion design? Or I think that's what she's asking, for fashion designers. And then it says degree. So I think what she's saying, what is the job market like in Sri Lanka for fashion design? Do you know the answer to that?
Yeah, so I explained to you on the beginning. What happens is, now if you take the studies, what we have the bachelors, we are having a lot of designers coming out of these AODs and all lifts and all these universities. So what happens is, now actually there is a demand for designers. As I said to you, there are private labels, there are international labels, as there are own labels also. So what happens is, like, it's the designing aspect comes, either you have to choose a private label to work for. Then you get a chance to design your range, to to give your inputs and balance the aspect of others. So I won't say no. And what I would say is, the diversification is so important. In case if you don't get a job as a designer, I think people should persuade with buying or merchandising and use their skills and form their unit to move, because it's not a very designer based, we are not like that, we are not into that extent yet, maybe in future, but currently I am still pretty sure that there are a lot of retail opportunities are coming up, a lot of fashion brands are coming into the country. So yes, there is.
Yeah. So I think hopefully, Malik, we've answered your question. If you have a question about a design degree, please also write that in the box, which is a bit clearer for me. Shanice, what is something you wished you knew before entering into the industry? So what do you wish that you knew before you entered into the fashion industry?
I think, like, again, it's about the key eye, you need to have a really good eye, and also you've got to be you got to select for others. That is very important. Now, as a buyer, you should not select what you like. You've got to always select what is the customer need is. That aspect is very key, and also a little bit of like interest in clothing. That could do, nothing else. You don't need any sort of rocket science to do this fashion retail.
Yeah, but also you did a lot of traveling, didn't you? As part of your job.
Yes, that was the part of the job. Yeah, that is because I was fortunate enough to be in Dubai and to work for multinational companies over there. It gave me opening to travel, to do their buys. I used to visit most of the European countries, so I have that experience where I've seen if you take the Topshop example, like how do they have the collection with them. So we go with a budget, then we get their inputs on the how is the stories what is the aspiration behind this collection. So we get all those information, then we get the chance to pick the product to the price point, to the quantity what we want to. So yes, and I have been fortunate enough to travel to visit many stores around a lot of part of the world. So yes, definitely that is
you were talking before, and you were telling me about that you went to London to do buying.
Yeah, that is like, if you are a fashion buyer, if you you get to do that. Even in Sri Lanka, if you take where I work currently for Odell, we do travel now. The pandemic situation is have limited, and so everything is happening digitally. But what we do is, our buyers or anywhere around the world, they do travel to go and see the fabrics, or how what is the range, what is their market. Then you bring a lot of information, such as how the VM techniques are done in those store, how are they handling the operation side of it, how is the intake flows are managed. And you will see, like, what is the flagship store, what do they show in a flagship store, then what is the outlet location, what do you do on those locations. So you get that exposure. If you are a buyer, you get to travel for sure.
Oh, exciting. So yeah, that was 2 questions. So I think the previous question from Malika was, first of all, about the job market in Sri Lanka, and I think second of all, she's implying, do you need to have a fashion degree or MA to enter the job market here in Sri Lanka or anywhere else? Do you think that's as important to have a qualification currently?
Not really. We are not so advanced, I would say, currently, because this is the only masters we have in Sri Lanka is the IIT, the Westminster. So actually, not really. We do recruit freshers. There are a few other places also, like recruit people without qualification, because it is so niche in Sri Lanka to have a fashion degree, like a fashion retail degree or a master's. So it's very rare, I would say. Definitely,
so
you don't need any.
Most students in Sri Lanka will have like a BA in fashion design, and then we're the only university doing an MA in fashion business management in Sri Lanka currently. So it's a very unique course, and it's very different from studying a design course as well. Any more questions?
I'm surprised because I'm surprised it has taken such a long time for somebody to come up with a fashion degree in Sri Lanka. If you take India, they're like far advanced now. Nifty is one of the top 5 in the world.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like kind of relatively new. This course is the IIT course is 2 years old, so it's quite new. Yeah, so and you just completed it.
Yes.
And so, right, we'll talk about the skills that you learned from doing your MA, and also kind of how it changed you. Like, do you feel like there's a big MA experience that happens to somebody as an individual? Because I certainly felt like that when I did an MA. Do you feel like you're a bit of a different person now you've achieved this qualification?
Yeah, like as I mentioned, the research part of when you do go to a project, which is important, it teaches you and it sharpens up you better. Then the example of international arena is a definite yes, because you get to know a lot of things. How is Louis Vuitton doing this? How is Adidas? What is the sustainability doing? Where is the supply chain going? So you get to learn those things. Theory is so important, I would say, because like even how they prepare you for a research, because it's a new thing, and like you will get to get the first-hand information from UK, proper updated. What I've seen in this course detail is like when I studied also, they had contents from 2015 to 18. So that's really good, relatively new.
Every year that. Okay, so what else have we got in here? So Zabida. Right, let me just know what we do. Okay, that's a good question. So Zabida would like to know, as a small business, she would like to know your views on what Sri Lanka is lacking in terms of e-commerce market, with several businesses entering the online platform during this pandemic.
Good one, yeah. So what do I see is, if you take the e-commerce subject, so the main lacking point is that we don't have good software developers to get this started. That's one big void I see. So we don't have the infrastructure of a sophisticated algorithm-based website. Now, if you go to ASOS or Amazon, it'll throw you the product you want. So in Sri Lanka, we don't have the software developers. We don't have that state-of-the-art websites to attract people. That is one. Then I would see the biggest challenge in online is the delivery lead time, because you got to make sure you deliver the product within 24 to 48 hours, whereas our normal deliveries around the country is about 3 to 7 days. That is the second drawback I would say that we have for e-com. Then also, like, we are far away from digital, or we are far away from omni-channel, I would say. Like, if you see as a country or as a nation, there is a lot of catching up to do on that aspect also. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure with this pandemic situation, e-com will start to boom.
Yeah. Okay, so a question here. So we have talked about what, the question is, what do fashion merchandisers do? And how do you become a fashion merchandiser? So could you just, just for people who came a bit later, could you just answer that question for them? Thank you.
Yes, I can do that. So, so the fashion merchandise, your main role is you're responsible for the whole range of product, whether you buy it or whether it's a push brand or a pull brand, it doesn't matter. So you've got to make sure to understand what is your sales for the next year or 6 months. Based on that, you get a number out. Say you want to buy 5,000 units. So that 5,000 units, you need to break up into categories: ladies, men's, okay, then into t-shirts, shorts. You need to have proper assortment. Then you got to make sure when you buy tops and bottoms, you got to buy one bottom for 3 tops, because that is how they sell. Then you've got to make sure the dress mix and all the other categories, commercial categories, basics, you're pretty covered with that. So you get to have the knowledge of, buying an assortment, and also you need to make sure that how it is going to represent in the store. So that is a skill of a fashion merchandiser buyer who wants to start a career. So then you move into, other bit of, like understanding seasonal requirements, what are the bestsellers, how deep you want to buy the bestseller, what do you need to buy as a DNA to represent a brand. Then you need to work around your pricing strategies. You need to see what you need to do as an of a com shop to understand what are the other retailers are doing. Then you get to work with the visual team to make sure that the product comes in and goes into a international standard, or the local private driven standards. Then you got to make sure the allocations are done on proper stores. Your flagship stores get the bigger portion of stocks, your outskirts stores get a smaller version. Then also you got to make sure to be proactive on the transfers. Maybe your flagship store will turn the stock 6 times higher than your outskirts store, so you have to be vigilant to move and not to miss the opportunity, because end of the day you got to sell the fashion faster so that you can turn the stock around. Then as a fashion merchandiser, you've got to reflect on your mistakes. You've got to reflect and see what are the lesson learned in the season, what did we miss, what did we buy more. That bit comes into it. And also you get the chance to work with the marketing department to initiate certain recommendations and work with them. So all these type of things, whatever it gets involved on the buying side, from the picking of the product until the last piece is sold, a fashion merchandise has to be responsible.
Yeah, and so just to be clear, we're looking at, like, there's fashion merchandiser and there's a visual merchandiser, and they can be two different roles, or sometimes they can be an extension of a role.
No, a designer, buyer, merchandiser, these all three can fall into a same category. But a visual merchandiser is a different aspect.
Yeah.
His main responsibility is make sure that the store looks good. That is his main responsibility, to make sure the range is properly managed, that the replenishment are done in the flow. Then bi-weekly or weekly, you need to change the fixtures. You got to re-merchandise the garments. So his main role is to make sure that the eye-level product, like if you have to match a top and a bottom, to make sure that you sell the outfit together, that commerciality he brings into the store. Then he got to make sure, okay, the commercial item, the cheap price point has to come into the front of the table. So it's all about, how even in supermarket, if you go, you will see that the product, the chocolates and all these are, eye level, where you see it, you buy it. The same skill you need to be aware. It's a different set of different job role than a buyer, merchandiser, or a designer.
Yeah, and I'm presuming that a merchandiser and a visual merchandiser, again, are going to have quite a lot of communication between each other, because they're going to be in store live, and that can be really valuable information to feed back to the merchandiser.
Yes, it can happen. It can happen because it's end of the day, it's a teamwork. Like if you take the merchandiser, he communicates the visual merchandise. Okay, he would say, okay, now can you on the next delivery, can you make sure to bring more tops than the bottoms, because we are lacking this category. Then he can tell you, okay, I travel to this part of the store, then they are lacking with bottoms. Can you please transfer some of the bottoms where the store has more to transfer to another? So he gives that bit of the support. So his main job is to make sure that visually it looks good for shoppers.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Any more questions out there, please? If you've just joined, we're talking about merchandising and buying, and feel free to ask us any questions or introduce yourself, or tell us about yourselves and what you want to do. Like, you're all here obviously because you've got an interest in fashion. Can we give you an advice, or can we encourage you to go into this industry? So please feel free to communicate with us. Okay, so we are talking back on this subject. So we are now covering up. One of the students asked me to ask you from IIT, would you ever consider starting your own brand?
Well, yes and no. For the time being, hello?
Hello, I'm here.
Yeah. So for the time being, I have no intention on a private brand or building something on my own for a brand. I won't rule it out also. But for now, I have got a really good opportunity to work for a leading fashion house. So I'm like going to strive myself, push myself, bring the best practices that I have learned through the years, and moving forward. And then a lot of excitement is going to come to Sri Lanka. We're going to get the Cinnamon Mall, Havelock Mall is coming up. Port City is not too far. Shangri-La is doing well. It will start to do well when the pandemic is over. So a lot of retail excitement is coming. I would rather work for somebody because the pressure, the challenges I would face and the intensity, I would enjoy that bit of work rather than doing something my own.
Yeah. Yes, I've got a question. Oh, that's a good question. So Shanika is saying, what is your favorite part of being of your role as a fashion merchandiser buyer?
Well, about using my experience, like when you come to this part of the world to do retail, there is so much to learn. Like it is never the same in UK or in Dubai, or if you go to far, it's so different. So when I came back to this part of the world, it is so different. You've got to work with very limited categories. You can't, make mistakes on buying wrong products and wrong categories. It doesn't matter how you need to represent the DNA. That's a different story. Like end of the day, you've got to make sure you make money also. So getting involved on certain decisions to change certain categories, to make sure that we are always on season, par with stocks, and also bringing newness is a key. What I enjoy a bit, and also like studying a bit okay, about the customer behavior, because we have a lot of fashion oriented people around. If you go to the malls now, you can see a lot of people wearing athleisure. They're coming with a lot of sporty items. So what I enjoy the most is to getting to contribute to the fashion industry, and I love the brands I handle.
Yeah, that's important, isn't it? That you feel passionate about that. So very good question, Shanika. Thank you. So I think this is two different questions again. Do we need a lot of experience to start our own fashion brand? And then it says, and merch. So let's just answer the first part of the question. So do we need a lot of experience to start your own fashion brand? What's your answer to that?
Yes and no. It's about you need to identify the customer and the product, where is it going to sell. That is very important. Like I can get up in the morning and say, okay, I'm going to have a t-shirt brands and produce some t-shirts and go into the market. Yes, there is a way people do that, but it's about understanding where do you want to go, what is the market gap you need to find out, and how is your competition, and how are you going to approach, and what are you strong at. Because nowadays, if you go to Pinterest, yes, you can build your range. There are so many avenues that you can start up your brand. I would say, like anybody who wants to start, yeah, you have to keep the small steps. Now it's like online is on your fingertips. You get your social commerce support to flourish with your own brand, or the WhatsApp is going to a different level. TikTok has come into the picture, and definitely technology is the way forward. So actually the investment part of it is very less when you compare about 5 years ago. Nowadays you can reach to the proper target audience or the market through social media if you really need it.
Okay, so there you go. Okay, so question from Nadira. What advice would you give to somebody who's just starting out in their retail career?
A fashion retail career, yes. Like the interest of learning about the brands, because there are so many sort of brands, then there are so many sort of categories. If you go to watches, it's a different aspect how you work. Then the shoes and handbags is different. Then fast fashion is different. Then sports is different. Then your private label reacts in a different way. So it's about trying to learn as much as possible, putting the puzzle together, understanding how to to make sure that it fits as a range, as a puzzle, and you need to tell your story, that bit of it. So end of the day, what I feel is like all these, if you put together, you can start it. After you start it, there are ways to learn now in the internet. You can learn what is fashion retail. There is the IIT Masters course where you can do and learn fashion. There are tutorials if you want to go and see what is open to buy. There is tutorial where if you want to understand how to build a range plan. So it's so easy nowadays.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got another question. So nice interactive audience. So really good question here. How do you think the fashion industry is going to evolve after the pandemic is over, or will it remain unchanged? That's a big question. So
Yes, that is a different. Yes. So we have seen like last year in April, May, when the pandemic on the peak, McKinsey's, Forbes, they all send so many forecasting, prediction. I think it's even getting difficult now. No, there is no solution for this pandemic if you see. So what I feel is, looking at the trends around after pandemic, I have seen a massive shift globally for reverse commerce, where renter clothing is coming up well. Because I was reading something last week, about 40% of growth is coming from reselling, re-renting previous owned clothing. So reverse commerce is a way forward. I think there is a market for that, especially when you take the rich luxury and luxury market. Then I would say omni-channel phygital stores will become more common. Then again, sustainability, the new black is in the market already. Everybody wants to do sustainability now. Then also what I would see is a lot of collaborations would happen in future after this pandemic, because people, the success is better when it together. So I believe, like, we are far away from collaboration, but that is one way. If you take the Louis Vuitton example, to go with a Korean artist, this collaboration will pop up a lot. Then also I would say personal shopping experience, live stream shopping experiences, a virtual drive would be there in future, especially after the pandemic. That would be my call.
Good answer. So yeah, we know, so kind of like to put that in a nutshell, we know that people, the students are constantly writing reports about how much the fashion industry is changing, and the consumer really is now dictating, I think, the way forwards rather than the brands. So the brands are going to have to listen to what the consumers want, and the consumers, like the new generation of consumers, really want to have transparency and feel like they're buying into sustainability. So this fast fashion model, do you think it's going to be rejected, or do you think it's going to just change shape? How will it adjust to the consumers?
Fast fashion is something, it's going to be there for some time, even though all the brands around want to go sustainability is the main focus, but still fast fashion would be there. What I would see, the major change would be that what I seeing is now most of the luxury brands are going towards athleisure and sportswear. So that shift, working from home, perfect Zoom outfits, these kind of things will take a bigger step, I would say. Now, if you see many of the luxury brands, top end or the mid guys, like, they are moving to athleisure. If you see, like, 10 trends now, out of 10 is 6 is about athleisure, working from home fit, very sporty. So that is a bigger change. mind you, before pandemic also athleisure was there, but I think now the trend is continuing to the next level.
Okay, great. What is the aspect area where you think the Sri Lankan retail industry needs more improvement compared to? Okay, that's interesting. What is the aspect or area you mainly think that the Sri Lankan retail industry needs more improvement compared to other countries?
Right. I would say like, I might get criticism, but I would say in Sri Lanka, we have a wholesale mentality. We think to move the units. We believe that moving units is a market share, which is right in a way, but for fashion,
Yeah.
you can't treat fashion as a FMCG.
No.
It is so different. So in fashion, what I would say is you've got to make sure that you drive the value and you drive the fashion aspect rather than looking into the units. So that is the first thing. Then we got to make sure we don't pile up on the old stock, because it can haunt you one day. It's like a snowball. See, if you don't clear the stock, which is older than a year, it's going to roll on, and it will not allow you to buy more stocks in the future. So what we do as a nation is, yes, we do see that we have started in the season sales, mid-season sales. We have seen this coming from retailers. But what I see is like, to bring that fashion element, to turn the stock faster, we got to have that fast fashion in the mind. That is one thing we got to change. Then what do I think is in Sri Lanka, still the mall culture is still new, right? We have seen a lot of standalones, lot of, like outskirts, street stores works better. So like that bit of the infrastructure also will have to change. You've got to give that not only the clothing shopping experience to the customer, but the lifestyle experience to the customer. It's not about the clothing what you wear. It's about the whole assortment, like moving towards a perfume, or what do I say, like a scarf, the accessories, got to bring that puzzle together. So I think the designers coming up now, and, with the studies coming in, people are getting more exposure. Things would change. Definitely things would change.
Yeah. Abdul, I would say as well, as a foreigner, that my experience of Sri Lankan retail and the high street is that it's really spread out. So when I first came to Colombo, I was looking for the area and kind of thinking, where do I go? Like, what's the area I go to? And it's quite fragmented. So you might have a shop that kind of stands alone, and then you might have to get a tuk-tuk to a different shop. So I would say it's more obvious in other countries about the fashion kind of geography and where everything is. Like, high street wise, because the high streets are much older in the UK. So that's one of my answers to that. Okay, so again, we've got the same question again. What was your first step to which you took to get into the fashion industry? I know you worked in manufacturing, but have you got anything to add to that question, Zishan?
So you want me to explain what is the link between the manufacturing and fashion?
No, someone was saying, what was your first step that you took to enter the fashion industry? And you have talked about how you were working in manufacturing at the beginning of the talk, but is there anything you want to add to that question that you feel that you could?
Yeah. So what can I say is, now a lot of people in Sri Lanka, if you take the merchandising, the apparel, the clothing sector, so that is bread and butter of Sri Lanka. We are known for manufacturing. So these kids who are in like manufacturing, a development merchandiser or a bulk merchandiser or a merchandiser where he does both part together. So if they want to pursue a fashion career, they got to give up certain things and move in that ladder, because fashion retail is still something young in Sri Lanka. So you got to sacrifice certain things, like if you're working one of the top 5 apparel companies like MS or Brandex or you name it. So if you want to give a push to your fashion retail career, there are ways. You got to, there are companies who hire. There are, the future is big for fashion in Sri Lanka. As I told you, there we are very excited to, to go. We are going to see port cities, malls. So there is going to be a fashion hub for sure. If the tourist inflow comes in, we are going to be really one of the best destinations in Asia. That's going to happen. So there are ample opportunities. Just that you got to adjust a bit and to come to the fashion arena. That is a sacrifice you got to make, because I can be honest, in apparel manufacturing, we are giants. So we do pay a lot. The level is so different. But if you take the fashion retail side, it's not that great and the jobs are still niche. So you have to, somebody wants to pursue the career, they have to work around, be patient and take it up.
Okay, that's answered that. Do you think the Sri Lankan consumer, is fashion forwards and fashion aware, or do you think the Sri Lankan consumer is such as essential driven?
Not really. I think the dynamics has changed for the last 5 years, especially after the social commerce coming in. We are very fashion forward country, I would say. Like people sew the garments at home and wear. That is also fashion. If you see, a lot of people have machines at home, so they sew their own things, and you must see the fashionability, the embellishment aspect they do, the batiks, the piralus, all these stuff. So it is it's just that even nobody sees it. We are a very fashion forward country, I would say. If you go down one golf phase, or if you see the next generation, definitely they are into it. And even people who are like our parents, the people who in our era, still we like fashion. Sri Lankans are not very boring.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so what is the shelf life of a design once it's in the store in a Sri Lankan brand, and how long should it stay there if it's selling? So how would you replenish it? So what is an average life of a garment in a store? Would it stay there for like 4 weeks or 3 months or?
So being a tropical country, actually the seasonality does not matter. So if it is a private label, still you got to have the 4 seasons, because if not, you will not turn the stock. And also you got to make sure at least people come to shop to you at least 6 times a year. So you got to turn the clothes. You can't run with replenishments a lot. So if you take the shelf life, if you take international brands, they would plan to have a 70% sell through on a 12 weeks period of a time. Within 3 months, you got to have at least a 60 to 70% sell through. Then the rest will go as a liquidation plan. That's how the model works. But local brands, yes, like if you have the commercial products like the t-shirts, the basics, or the fashion basics, that can run a little bit longer, for about 4 to 5 months, or 16 to 20 weeks. But when it comes to fast fashion, I would say like 8 to 12 weeks is a good benchmark. Means that it is in the flow for 3 months, which is quite outdated for me.
Okay. Okay, so I think that's it. No more questions, anyone? We've got 1 minute left. Anything else? Any other thoughts? Okay. Okay, well, that's it. We've had an hour of talking to you. And thank you so much. It's really interesting. It's really insightful. And very enjoyable to hear about this particular role. So, and thank you for joining us, audience. And please come again. We'll be running more Wednesday webinars to discuss the fashion industry. And everyone is saying, thank you so much. Oh, one more question. Can we know some websites to know some good fashion brands?
International, you mean?
Yeah. Do you think international? Like, they want to know some trends. So if they look at a fashion website for trends, what would you advise?
Yeah, like okay, if you want to follow fashion trends, then like WGSN is the best platform we got, because it gives you the base, a summary, inception. It goes to different diversification. So WGSN is the number one. Apart from, there is so many other things, like the business of fashion, the net quarter. Even if you want to go to other sites, like if you subscribe to Zara or Mango, these brands sends you the newsletters. And if you sign up for business of fashion, you get to read a lot weekly what's happening in the fashion world. Or if you sign into Vogue, you can do a lot of free stuff also nowadays. So there is lots to look around and learn. It's just at the fingertip. Before you sleep, half an hour you browse it, and you get to see what is happening around the world.
Yeah. So, in your experience, which online platform would you recommend to a friend in terms of fashion in Sri Lanka?
Right, in Sri Lanka, of course, I can't recommend to be. Hello?
I'm here.
Yeah, in Sri Lanka, of course, I don't want to do a comparison, to be honest. But internationally, if you see, like ASOS is a good site to follow. Then Zalora is doing well in the Far East bit of area. Then Amazon is not that great for fashion, but still you will get the hang of algorithms, how they they catch you. Like if you see you want to buy a Lego today, tomorrow when you come, it will show you identically what is there. And also, if you don't go to the site tomorrow, it will send you a reminder. Wow, you watched this yesterday. This product has an offer today. So
Yeah.
that bit of it, you can learn a lot from these international brands.
Yeah. So WGSN is quite an expensive it's a forecasting agency, and actually at IIT you have access to this site as a student, and we have a guest talker from WGSN who introduces the website and shows you how to use it. And then, yeah, for international brands, you can just look at high street brands like Zara, we talked about, and there's a place called Matches, which is quite interesting in London. Liberty would be interesting, Selfridges. So they're going to give you some really interesting international references for clothing. So thank you so much, everybody. I think we're finished, and we've been talking for an hour, and that we should let Zishan go and relax. And thank you so much, and have a good evening, everybody. That was really interesting.
Thank you so much for the audience. Thank you so much for Rebecca. I thoroughly enjoyed the way forward.
Yes, it's great.